Happy birthday, Daggerheart! It's been 2 years since you arrived in the world in an open playtest form, and you've had quite a life so far. You were launched in March 2024 to all manner of fanfare, with loads of people, including me for one of my first videos for this channel, asking, was Daggerheart going to be the D&D killer? Fast forward from the initial announcement, playtesting and the main release, we now have a much clearer idea of Daggerheart's place within the TTRPG world. But is Daggerheart the D&D killer that folks predicted? Well, small spoiler. Nope. Is Daggerheart one of those here today, gone tomorrow games that vanishes without a trace? Also, no. There are a couple of much more interesting questions to ask. What has Daggerheart done to the TTRPG hobby as a whole, and how has it affected the big boy, D&D? My name's Rich, this is Renegade Rolls, and welcome to my look at Daggerheart and the state of the wider TTRPG industry in 2026. If you're new here, hi. Talking about the discourse is rare for me. Consider it a treat for Daggerheart's birthday. Usually I give advice for game masters on how to run games, specifically looking at the roleplay sides rather than tactics and combat. I've got lots of videos talking about problems we all have at the table, and I also put my money where my mouth is on my second channel, which is full of actual plays in D&D, Daggerheart, and loads of other systems. The thing that separates games which are flashes in the pan, released and then never heard of again, to those which have longevity and can really build over time, is rarely the polish of the production or the marketing budget. In reality, systems sink or swim based on two factors. One is the quality of the game and the experiences that it generates around the table. If your group have had an incredible time with the system, you're going to want to tell everyone about it. I've had some of my best role-playing experiences with Daggerheart, and I will tell everyone about it, whether they like it or not. On the train, I think it's really nice for people if I can interrupt them talking about Daggerheart, rather than that I'm a vegan or I use Linux. This player and game master-led promo is something that money can't buy, and the most authentic form of advertising for a system. The other thing I think a system needs for longevity and to evolve over time is the creation of third-party content. There have been some really cool systems that I've played, but they've had nothing more than the core book to go from, and no inspiration for what to try next. Systems from day one which have embraced their creative communities have often found that the games have grown a momentum all of their own. They've grown arms and legs and tentacles as the publishers developed their game alongside the community. Prime examples of this would be Mothership, with 1 million fan-made creations, and also Morkborg, which has such a permissive license that I've now lost track of how many cool variations there are. Releasing hot off the tails of the D&D OGL scandal, it was interesting that Darrington Press didn't choose the more permissive form of license, which some of those other games have embraced. This led to the Hero Forge trouble of people having to pay extra to access the Daggerheart specific minis. As far as I understand, the reasons for this were a whole load of legal stuff behind the scenes, but it does create an obstacle and a worrying example for third-party creators to make something for the system. Daggerheart, thanks to Critical Role, has a huge base of people who have heard about the game, but a rather smaller group of creators who are making third-party content for it. If you take a look on DriveThruRPG or on YouTube to see what's out there, it's interesting to see how few of the bigger, well-established names in third-party creation are actually making things for Daggerheart, and it feels like it's underrepresented despite being super popular with players and game masters. My suspicion is that the bigger third-party creators like Kobold Press have been hedging their bets on whether Daggerheart will be a success before committing to making system-specific material. One fantastic creator who's bucking this trend, and you might well have heard of, is Bob Worldbuilder. He's made an adventure for Daggerheart called Death at Helfast Spire. It's a sword and sorcery adventure which me and the lovely folks at Danger had the pleasure of playing through as an actual play. Gods have no use for the dead.
Maybe hell would be better.
Is this a crisis of faith?
Oh yeah, 100%.
As you're sort of thinking these thoughts, oh, maybe hell would be better. Hello, friend.
Oh dear, never mind.
I can help. I can aid you. I am God of Death. That can mean the safe passage to Valhalla. You have destiny. You have the power to shape futures. Many do not.
I think it is really strongly considering.
Welcome, friends of Nay Danger and Renegade Rolls, to a Daggerheart adventure written by Bob Worldbuilder, no less. This is Death at Helfast Spire. You'll find a link to Bob's adventure Death at Helfast Spire on DriveThruRPG as a link in the description somewhere, as well as a link to that actual play. Also, if you want a physical copy and you are very quick, you can back the Kickstarter Under the Shadow of Helfast Spire, which is primarily for Shadowdark, but includes the Daggerheart adventure as part of the bundle. The Kickstarter ends on March 12th. If you're watching after then, I'll add an updated link in the description. Daggerheart is not the D&D killer that some folks confidently predicted a couple of years back, but what I think it has done is super interesting and has opened the way for maybe a future edition of Daggerheart or another new RPG to break into the space and potentially become huge. There was a massive wave of people who got into D&D over lockdown, and Critical Role and Dimension 20 started doing massive numbers. That wave of fans are now mature within the hobby. Some of them might have left the hobby entirely, gone outside, got some fresh air or something, but others are exploring more deeply into TTRPGs. In releasing Daggerheart, Critical Role and American Press exposed all of those people to the fact that different games are out there. This video was inspired by a Reddit thread posted by Path of Blades, which started with the title, "Not gonna lie, I worry about the lack of Daggerheart content." They mentioned that after the flurry of stuff around the launch, things have gone a bit quiet, especially because of the fact that there's no dedicated social media just for Daggerheart. Lots of the replies were super interesting, talking about the production cycles of games, and how there's certainly much more going on behind the scenes than what we see them talking about. And this was pretty much confirmed by one of the Daggerheart senior producers jumping in to say they're looking forward to being able to share more soon. I for one am super curious about this discussion, and properly excited to see what they've got in the works. One of the big attractions for Daggerheart is it doesn't need this 50-year-long understanding of the game in order to play it with confidence and to know that you've got a thorough understanding of what's going on. I like to think I've got a decent knowledge of D&D lore, but it pales in comparison to some people. The fact that everything there is to know about Daggerheart is contained within one book and that there's no single canonical correct setting for the game means that I and a lot of other people feel much more confident in running the game. Daggerheart quickly became my favourite system to run, and I love introducing folks who are new to TTRPGs to Daggerheart as their first experience. Also, when I'm not playing Daggerheart, I will totally just steal its mechanics and use them in other systems. The death moves where everything relies on a single roll and the wonderful character creation are both things that I now bring with me whatever system I'm playing. As I'm filming in early March 2026, the current state of affairs looks like this. First, the big expansion for Daggerheart, Hope and Fear, is coming out soon. Critical Role decided to go with D&D over Daggerheart for their flagship campaign, but there are some other actual plays, including the long-running Acquisitions Incorporated, which have made the switch to Daggerheart from D&D. Daggerheart seems to have been the biggest new TTRPG release since Pathfinder came out, and back then Pathfinder was touted as a D&D killer as well. Neither system is likely to steal D&D's throne anytime soon. While replacing one dominant game with another would be fascinating, and you should all know I love an underdog, what I think we'll get is something even more interesting. A TTRPG hobby where a plurality of systems are known by large parts of the community, and that yes, lots of folks will stick with D&D, but there'll be an increasing block of people with no loyalty to one particular system who will enjoy skipping around different games and genres and settings. This is all of course pure speculation. If you're watching in the future, please feel free to tell me just how wrong I am in the comments. In the meantime, go check out my actual play with the lovely folks from Nay Danger playing Death at Helfast Spire. Also, while you're there, check out Bob Worldbuilder's Kickstarter for Under the Shadow of Helfast Spire. They're both super cool and hopefully part of that third-party creative content ecosystem that will help Daggerheart and the TTRPG hobby as a whole keep on going for years and years to come.